When Willie Waddell took over as Rangers manager in December 1969, there was two main items in his entry. The first one was not so much to win as our first league title since 1964, it's to win as our first piece of any kind of domestic silverware since the 1966 Scottish Cup. The other thing was to win us a European trophy. Celtic had lifted the European Cup 2.5 years earlier. As such, at the time becoming the only Scottish side ever to have lifted continental silverware, Willie Waddell had to put that right. Bish bash bosh. 16-year-old Derek Johnston scores the only goal of the 1970-71 League Cup final against Celtic, and as you all know, Waddell in 1972 led us to our only European trophy to date in that Cup World Cup final against Moscow Dynamo in Barcelona's Nou Camp. Tragically, however, the main workload of Waddell's professional and personal life, I think it really affected him personally, would become the redevelopment of Ibrox in the wake of the Ibrox disaster. He vowed that never again would a fan lose their life simply turning up at Ibrox to watch a football match, as had happened in such a horrible scale just over a year after he'd taken over as manager. He quickly handed the managerial reins over to Jock Wallace, who he brought in as a coach and quickly identified as being the manager he would become. Jock leading us to several league titles that would stop Celtic's period of domination under Jock's team. This was Celtic in the middle of their kind of 9-in-a-row period when Willie Waddell came in as manager. In 1981, they redeveloped Ibrox as its official opening match, a friendly against Liverpool. It was the most spectacular, the most comfortable, the most modern, the most safe ground in the British Isles. And one of the grounds that Willie Waddell based Ibrox on when he was drawing up the plans to redevelop it was, as you probably know, Dortmund's Westfalenstadion. Not the Westfalenstadion they've got now. They've built on top of it like almost another stadium on top of it. They've expanded the size really dramatically since it was first built from scratch in 1974, specifically for the 1974 World Cup finals, being staged in what was then colloquially known as West Germany. It was 4 individual rectangular kind of goal frame style stands, all with roofs, which in the early to mid 70s was a big deal. And if you look at Ibrox just now, you can see the 3 newer stands, although we're filled in the corners. You can see that the Copeland and the Broomland are mirror images of each other, and the Govan stand, now called the Sandy Jardin, is really just a bigger version of those two. We didn't have to redevelop the fourth side. The main stand is a listed building, and also half of its capacity was seating at the time, so there was no great need to. And it makes me wonder if it had been as it was in the original Westfalen. It'd be difficult to tell where you were if you're watching pictures on the television if you don't know, because camera gantries can change sides. Hearts were redeveloping their main stand recently, and the camera gantry at Tynecastle changed sides, and because the other 2 stands are identical at Tynecastle, almost, there's little differences you can notice if you know it really well. It would be difficult to know what's happening. I've been watching the Westfalen through the years and its development, because I watch a lot of old clips on YouTube as well, and just keeping an eye on German club football. And it's been difficult for me to work out, and this is the crux of the matter here, if Ryan Kent's little turn, his little Cruyff turn against Borussia Dortmund in the Westfalen, took place on the exact same part of the pitch as Johan Cruyff first announced the turn that was named after him in the 1974 World Cup finals. Because one of the things that happened at the Westfalen 74 was the Dutch announcing themselves as a major international force under Rinus Michels, the total football side of Krol, Neeskens, Cruyff, Van Hanegem. They blew the World Cup wide open. They lost the final to the much more conservative West German side, but they played 4 or 5 games, I think, at the Westfalen. And as you look at it on the YouTube footage just now, it's the bottom left-hand corner in the opening round group game against Sweden. Janne Olsen comes in to try and mark Cruyff. He's out in the flank, down at that corner. He makes the goal one way, pulls the ball through his standing leg, goes the other way, leaves Olsen totally floundering. In a game that was drawn 0-0, I mean, a goal didn't come from it. And Cruyff himself had performed his little turn against Inter in the 1972 European Cup final for Ajax. He probably did it every week, but this was on the global stage, and the world just kind of held its breath. They couldn't believe what they'd just seen. Cruyff's wearing the long sleeves. He's taken off one of the Adidas stripes because he was a Puma man. If you watch any footage, look at his strip in every game. He's taken off one of the stripes. He's got 2 stripes down his sleeves, down his shorts, down his socks, as opposed to everybody else wearing 3. And he's wearing the number 14, the squad number that became synonymous not just with brilliant football, with the kind of open-minded, I think, expansive way of thinking. It was a really cool number to wear. You had to live up to it after that 1974 World Cup. Now, the other corner, it might be the diametrically opposite corner if those cameras have changed sides over the years, it might be the same corner when Ryan Kent just finishes off one of the greatest moves of my life, watching Rangers. We're 2-0 up at half-time in the Westfalen against Borussia Dortmund, who are the tournament favourites. They've dropped in from the Champions League. We are almost 10 years to the day since we went into administration. It felt like the day before we'd been losing League Challenge Cup semi-finals against Alloa, at Recreation Park, and here we are, back playing Borussia Dortmund, a historic foe, and we're 2-0 up at half-time. But one of the things I know about German teams, I like my German football, is that like no other nation on earth, even with the club sides that are full of foreigners, they can retrieve a deficit. Sometimes being 2-0 up against a German side at half-time is just asking for trouble, asking for a bigger humiliation. I needed a sign that this was going to go all the way, because although we'd been a goal away from the Champions League final, although we won a European trophy in the past, the Barcelona Bears, on the way to that trophy, they beat the great Bayern Munich side of the early to mid-70s, who were the backbone of the West German side that beat Cruyff's Dutch in that 74 final. I needed a sign that, because pound for pound, where we'd just been and what we were up against, this was going to be the greatest Rangers performance of my life if we were going to carry this on. Early in the second half, Ryan Kent leaves 3 Dortmund defenders completely floundering down the left flank. One of them is Mats Hummels, who has a World Cup winners medal for Germany. He did a step over with him, he just showed him the ball, then took it away, left Hummels absolutely stranded. He's forlornly trying to get back as Ryan Kent takes it into the box. Another Dortmund defender, and there was a French international, also chasing them towards the byline. They're still going for the byline after Ryan Kent, wearing the long sleeves for Rangers, wearing the red and black socks, wearing black gloves, no European kit, white shorts, wearing the number 14, checks back, performs his little Cruyff turn. It was watched on television, it was the movement of his head, heading one way, and then suddenly he's looking completely the other way from the rest of the park. Dortmund are all at sea. The rest of his Rangers teammates are busily trying to catch up with him. Ryan Kent owns that pitch for a nanosecond, but it felt like forever, and he's just surveying all before him, thinking, what do I do with this now? Because I can do whatever I want. He tees up John Lundstram, and I knew it was a goal. Not because I had particular faith in John Lundstram's shooting ability from the edge of the box, although I knew it was good. It was because when Ryan Kent does something like any player, I hadn't seen movement like that since the days of Brian Laudrup and before that David Cooper. It was world class. And there's a cosmic law that demands a move like that must end with a goal. The ball's into the bottom corner. The Rangers players go crazy. The Rangers fans in the stadium go crazy. The Dortmund players are still trying to work out where the ball is. The Dortmund fans applaud. Ryan Kent just jogs across the box. Because when you perform a move of such cool, there has to be a surfeit of cool in your veins. You can't go from that straight to an explosive celebration, or you would explode. Dortmund pull a goal back. What Ryan Kent does is goes and dispossesses another Dortmund player just about a third of the way into his own half and lays the ball off to Joe Aribo and Alfredo Morelos to sort out amongst themselves who's going to score that fourth goal that puts the game in the bag and certifies it. We win 4-2 in the end as the greatest pound for pound Rangers performance I have ever seen, and Ryan Kent was absolutely spectacular on the night. We play Red Star Belgrade in the next round. Ryan Kent wins a penalty at the beginning. The second leg against Dortmund was still up for grabs because they were so good. Ryan Kent wins a penalty, so we got the first goal that night as well. He should have scored, he did score at the end, and it was ruled out by VAR for why I will never know. He should have had the winner that night. The game ended 2-2 at Ibrox. We go through and we play Red Star Belgrade. He gets the ball rolling there again by winning the penalty. Tav scores from the spot. The away leg, we are really under pressure. I've never heard a noise like it, despite us being 3-0 up for the first leg. I'm watching the telly and I can feel the intimidation. We're a goal down, we're getting pounded. Second half, Ryan Kent goes clean through. Not the tidiest finish in the world, but he does the business. He kills the tie stone dead. And that's the memory I'll always have of Ryan Kent. It won't be the one that I'm sublimating, suppressing, repressing, which is that Ryan Kent, with his kind of cool Jamaican accent, received the ball from an actual Jamaican international in the Sanchez Pizjuan Stadium in Seville in the last minute of extra time. He's one-on-one with Kevin Trapp and he should have put the ball in the net and somehow missed it, and he could have been the man to win our first European trophy since Willie Waddle 50 years earlier in the same country. We're not going to think about it, are we? We hope that ball went out of play. We hope Kemar Roof hadn't really pulled it back before it went over the line. It was going to get chopped off by VAR, wasn't it? a wee sign of the frustration that will always encapsulate Ryan Kent's time at Rangers. It's all about the numbers, isn't it? And just now we're all talking about the fact that the big number is we got zero for him, a big fat zero transfer fee. His contract ran out. I think it's slightly to miss the point. He was here for 5 years. He arrived in 2018 from Liverpool on loan. Steven Gerrard's managerial career started with a little stint as managing the youth sides at Anfield. He'd spotted Kent, who'd been out on loan to a few different places, brings him into Rangers, instant hit with the fans, electric speed, great skill down that left touchline, great combinations with Borna Barisic overlapping, for example. Eventually, him and Borna put in the one cross each for the 2 goals that Alfredo Morelos scores against Feyenoord, that iconic night in Decoy. He could play in a fantastic ball. Even beginning of this season, do you remember, we were kind of struggling against Livingston the first match of the season. I think they brought on, was it Malik Tillman? With Tillman and Lawrence, they were taking the pressure off Ryan Kent. First thing he does, he puts in a world of a ball right onto Antonio Cholak's head. Was that one that was ruled out? That was maybe the first half. Puts the ball into Scotty Arfield's head. He could just play a fantastic cross. The thing with him was he couldn't get the numbers, but I think that's not to. I think that's to do down the fact that teams would double down on Ryan Kent. I think opposition players, opposition managers had far more respect for Ryan Kent than the Rangers support often did. And we saw that in his first season. He's at Ibrox on loan. He ends up becoming SPFA Young Player of the Year. He's a Young Rangers Player of the Year last season. He scores against Celtic. We lose 2-1 at Parkhead, but he scores the goal, and also in a game that was letting Celtic know it wasn't going to be easy anymore, as it had been the first 2 seasons for us back in the top flight under, Kashinia and Murty and what have you. This was going to be a real fight under Steven Gerrard, and he lashes out at Scott Brown, who dives. He's trying to get Kent sent off, but the cameraman catches it just at the right time in the photograph as Ryan Kent, as if he's punching the rather horrible Celtic captain clean out, makes him an instant hit with the fans on its own. The following season, Jurgen Klopp does a great thing. He takes Kent back to Anfield in the summer and plays him in a few friendlies against top opposition, and rants and raves about him. So we have to pay £6.5 to £7 million to get him back to Ibrox. And for me, it's well worth it. He scores this time against Celtic at Parkhead again, but this time it's in a victory, our first victory at Parkhead in years. Again, we're slowly just laying it down. We're saying what's going to happen here. We're laying the groundwork for what eventually happened the following season with 55. Ryan Kent does his little kind of gangster rap celebration with the guns, sends the Celtic support. Absolutely wild. That's fine by us. Apologies if it's no gangster rap. Old man talking here. But he definitely liked his songs from the popular hit parade, Did Young Ryan. He was introverted. I don't think he was huffy or moody. I think he was just sensitive. And that would show itself in times by him working too hard. Best out in that left flank or in the inside left berth, as old guys like me would call it. He could play as a second striker as well. He was really good in that kind of role, certainly good at teeing things up. But he would come too deep, and he would try and get the ball all over the park when he wasn't having a good game, because he knew he had the skill. And as I say, opposition really got on top of him, and he would make room for his colleagues to rack up the numbers. I think it's significant that Ryan Kent's only season where he scored double figures in the league, and it was 10 goals. The lowest double figures you can get was in 55 season. There's no fans in the stadiums. Now, when we did have fans in the stadiums and Ibrox was bouncing, he's getting us to a European final, so it's hard to judge either way, the whole thing about his temperament. He got a new lease of life under Michael Beale in the season just gone there. He was starting to give more a free role. He's playing right across the front of the midfield. He was playing up an attack as well, and those kind of 3-goal wins we had midweek at Easter Road and then Tynecastle, he was a massive part of that, and really giving the opposition so much to think about, linking up with likes of Cantwell and Raskin and Tillman. Just too much for the opposition to handle. Ryan Kent was absolutely massive, but it started to tail off towards the end of the season there, and I think it's there was no contract negotiations taking place. He wasn't going to extend his contract. We all wanted to know, did Ryan Kent want to stay, or was he going to go out in style? And when it got to that Scottish Cup semi-final in April, he had a little moment where he nearly gives the ball to Celtic to put him clean through and goal when he's last man at a Rangers corner, because of his speed. He's covering at the back and he nearly gives the ball away. And there was a reaction from the Rangers crowd that spoke of the frustration we're feeling towards him. And 2 minutes later, he's the first of a catalogue of fatal errors that led to Celtic scoring the only goal of the game, but he turns his back on the ball and when it goes dead at a free kick, doesn't come back on for the second half, and that was him. And he's still getting it tight when he comes onto the park at the end of that game against Hearts, a 2-each draw, the last home game of the season, where the famous 5 from the 55 season are saying their goodbyes. He's wearing the black trainers, black joggies, black hoodie, black baseball cap. Why is he not wearing Rangers gear? He's the last guy in the world you're going to see wearing a blazer and tie if he doesn't have to. He's got his wee goatees, he's got his wee tash, very much an individual, which is why he was so skillful, why he was so brilliant to watch at times. And I think the thing with Ryan Kent is the same with Alfredo Morelos. They're seen as being responsible for the malaise, I think. The 55, as the banner said last season, you took your eye off the ball after 55. I think we all did, not just directors, not just players, but fans as well. There's such a surfeit of emotion. There was so much invested in us stopping Celtic getting to 10. Nah, not so much. Just us getting back on the board, as it was under Willie Waddle at that time back in the late 60s, early 70s, when it was about us stopping our drought first before we'd be able to properly stop Celtic powering on. They only won 2 domestic trophies, this team, but it was about us getting domestic trophies back on board, getting that back into the muscle memory, and they've done that. They've achieved that. Ryan Kent was at the heart of it. He's gone over to Fenerbahce, and I think it's quite amazing that a guy who was sometimes seen as being underperforming domestically but overperforming in Europe is now going to perform domestically in Europe, and only Ryan Kent could do it in Asia, Fenerbahce being on the other side of the Bosphorus. He's a total individual. For me, when we talk about the numbers with Ryan Kent not being good enough, he scores that spectacular goal against Celtic this season, just curling one into top corner, and again that immediately makes people go, why doesn't he do that more often instead of appreciating what we have? It's a very special time in our history just now, and Ryan Kent was a major part of that. I've been lucky enough to work on a couple of projects involving the Barcelona Bears, studying that 1972 European Cup Winners' Cup win. And the one thing that becomes clear, one of the reasons I wanted to do a book on it way back in the day, was because they weren't appreciated enough at the time. People were saying Cup Winners' Cup's not as good as a European Cup. They had a terrible domestic season, and that was what they were getting a lot of criticism for that. The crowds were really low, and it's only in later years we appreciate, thank God, somebody did win a European trophy for Rangers. And I think we're going to look back and appreciate this team, the team that Ryan Kent played in, a lot more than we do currently. And all the talk of the numbers, the only number that really counts for me, not number 14, but number 55. Thanks very much, Ryan, and all the best to you, son.